Okay, hello and welcome back. This is Stripping It Right Back, part 4. And if you join me again, fabulous. Anyway, today I want to talk about the inner eye. Okay, we all know the seeing eye. What is the inner eye? How do we see? If there's an inner eye, how are we seeing internally? Okay, that's my question today. That's something I want to talk about today. In part 3, I did allude to the idea of the formulaic animal in the machine. Okay, I believe there's only one entity on the planet. I believe this body to be nothing more than a conduit for this thing to conduct itself through. Okay, I believe humans, animals, trees, plants are all extensions of this thing, all temporary extensions, and they've all manifested so this thing could find a single channel to come through. Okay, one road leads to Rome, and you only need one road to get to Rome, and this thing only needed one channel to come up through, and we are its most primed channel to date, and so on, if that makes sense. Anyway, before I get into that, it's a big bold statement to say there's only one entity on the planet. Okay, that will shift the paradigm, in understanding things forever. The idea there's only one entity coming through is all, etc., etc. But today, there's many avenues I have to cover before I get into a big bold statement like that. And one of them is about the internal eye, okay? The inner eye, the seeing eye, the observational eye, okay? We are in this garden and we are observing the fact that we are in this garden, okay? So there's a garden and there's an observational eye in the garden. And I just want to talk today quickly about the observational eye and ask the question, how are we seeing internally, okay? Because it's important that we distinguish between these eyes and the inner eye and make a distinguish how we are seeing, okay? Draw a line down the middle, demarcate and say, so these eyes, what do these eyes actually see? These eyes see light fractals, okay? They see light fractals, and the mind looks through the windows. These eyes, they're windows into this world, and we can understand fractals and we can understand proximity, place, okay, position. We can place ourselves down in this reality, in this three-dimensional void, and we can, because of proximity, because the mind can understand through the lens, we don't bump into things and so on. But there's no knowledge in that. That's all it sees, okay? The internal eye sees that these eyes actually see nothing. They just filter light and so on and allow us to walk around here and not bump into things, basically. So how are we seeing internally? That's the big question. We see around inferences and axioms. We infer, axiomate. We infer, axiomate, okay? Everything we understand about science, everything we understand about chemistry is built around inferences and axioms, okay? We infer something, we infer certain patterns, and we axiomate them, okay? And that's what gives us knowledge, and that's how we guide ourselves, okay? So let me explain inferences first. Let's just pull something out of the air. Capitalism, okay? How do we see capitalism, okay? It's not something we can look at, okay? It's not, there's my hand, okay? Where is capitalism, okay? This notion that's built into all of us. This notion, it's an all-encompassing notion that covers a whole field of plays, a whole field of interplays and so on. So what do we infer about capitalism, okay? We can close our eyes and see it because we're seeing internally, and it's loaded. What is capitalism? It's a loaded statement, okay? To hold capital. We can infer greed, we can infer power, pseudo-power, we can infer oligopolies, oligarchs and so on. We can infer poverty, we can infer famine, we can infer indignation, we can infer justice, we can infer imbalance in the face of balance. Okay, so we infer all these things about this field, this conceptual notion called capitalism. Okay, we infer. The point being is, it's an internal eye that is seeing all of this. We internalize this. We internalize it around all the things we infer. Okay, hopefully you can infer what I'm saying. Okay, we infer. Take the Olympic Games. We infer sports. We infer stadiums. We infer spectators. We infer strength. We infer running. We infer speed. We infer height, jumping, and so on. So it's always built around inferences, okay, and so on. Everything we infer about the cell is built around inferences. Everything we infer about the body, we infer heart, we infer lungs, we infer cells, we infer blood cells, we infer white cells, we infer veins, arteries, bones, joints, and so on, muscles, and so on, and atoms and molecules, all of these inferences. So the mind sees, this is how the seeing eye sees, it sees around a bed of inferences that we find patterns in and axiomate ourselves by, so we can guide ourselves along the inferences that we are reading internally. Hopefully you can infer that. Anyway, so let's look at axioms now. What is an axiom? Okay, an axiom is simply put is a rule of inference. Okay, so let's just look at a simple axiom. Let's just take an object floating through space. This is the object floating through space. Now, unless the object is acted upon by another object, It'll always stay going in a straight line. This is axiomatic. Another axiom, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. This is axiomatic. And it's axiomatic because it cannot be conceived of any other way. It cannot be inferred internally any other way. This is how the mind is organizing itself around inferences, so it cannot conceive of things any other way, okay? We all break down to molecules. This is axiomatic. We can all evaluate and navigate. This is axiomatic. And so on. Now the important thing to note about axioms is this, okay? Let's just go back to the object floating through space. The object in space doesn't understand axioms, clearly. It goes without saying. It can't conceptualize axioms. It's just an object floating through space, okay? We infer the axiom, okay? We apply the axiom, the rule, okay? When we infer that an object moving through space, unless it's acted upon by another object, it'll always stay going in a straight line. We align our minds with that position, that pattern of play, that order of play, okay? So the point being is axioms are something that the mind aligns with, okay? So sight is all about the seeing eye sees internally, okay, around beds of inferences. And when we find patterns, when we find certain order in the beds of inferences, we place an axiom on it. And this is how we understand knowledge. This is how we understand things to be the case, if you will. So anyway, when we try to infer, let's look at the garden we're in out here, okay? When we try to infer body, okay, it breaks down to molecules, it breaks down to atoms, okay? Once we start to infer it, okay, once we start to open it up, once we start to give the mind scope and scale and we try to integrate it, we try to internally see it, okay, the body loses its place, okay? So we cannot actually infer body. We infer it's in a dissipating field, okay? We infer something dissipating, but we can't actually place an inference and say, there it is. So we internally understand that, okay? So we have a set of a priori modes in the mind, okay, that allow us to see internally around inferences and axioms, okay? And when we internalize and try to integrate with this reality out here, we can't actually place it. Okay, this is a very important fact. You need to understand this fact. So all we can say is that we have an internal I within, okay, that's inside, that works in conjunction with a set of systemic modes, and these modes allow us to see reality, they allow us to organize our place around reality, they allow us to internalize our place around reality. Like I said, this is the internal I trying to find its place it's trying to understand its place within the trees. Anyway, hopefully that makes sense, that we see internally, and it's a very important point that you infer, because as we go along I'm going to talk about the organizational I, about the seeing I, and build on it further. So peace and love, and thank you for listening.